Good afternoon. So we have invited Jonathan for blockchain related presentation. There is a little 10-second story behind it. When we were preparing for this cyber security symposium, there was two sides of the coin. Half of the group was indicating that we should not use blockchain at all because it's not secure, it's scary and whatnot. And the other side of the coin, which is me, I said, no, we should use blockchain if you use it carefully. And then I talked to Jonathan, my manager and my boss, and requested him to have a good presentation on that, how we can use blockchain in government sector and how it can benefit government sector. Let me introduce Jonathan. For over 25 years, Dr. Jonathan Reckenthal has been successfully helping organizations leveraging the value of information and communication technology to solve business problems, increase effectiveness, and support revenue growth as well. Jonathan has experience in both private and public sectors. He spent over 15 years in PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, in a variety of technology-related roles, including but not limited to leading technology innovation by delivering specific expertise in engineering, technologies, and impact of macro trends such as demography on organizational success. In 2017, he was named one of the top 100 CIO in the world, and in 2016, he was named one of the top 20 most influential CIOs in the United States. Dr. Reckenthal is also recognized as a global thought leader on the future of urban innovation. He is currently a multiple award-winning Chief Information Security Officer for the City of Palo Alto, focusing on modernizing the technology environment, implementing enhancement to the citywide SAP implementation, and pushing the boundaries, and pushing me as well, of the innovation in local government, such as open data and broader civic participation through mobile devices. Under Jonathan's leadership, Palo Alto has been named one of the top 5 digital cities in America for 5 years in a row, including the top spot in 2013. With that, please welcome Jonathan Reckenthal.
Thank you. I thought it would never end.
No,
Thank you. That's great. It's cool. I'm like a regular here, Russ. Like, conference wouldn't be right without at least a few words from me, I guess. So who's doing cybersecurity in California right now? That's what I want to know. Right? If you're all here, I suppose your teams, right? I don't know who's doing it at the City of Palo Alto, you know, because he's like a team of one, a powerhouse of cybersecurity at the City of Palo Alto. So let's see, well, I'm going to talk about the role of blockchain potentially in government. And so we all agree that blockchain is going to bring world peace, reduce that 9% of extreme poverty to 0, right? No, it's that typical case. I look out there and I see you've been in the tech industry a little while, and you know when there's an interesting new tech that we kind of get obsessed with it for a while, and then we turn away from it. It becomes almost toxic. It's like, enough already of that tech. You know, is it overhyped? We've seen lots of these. In my career, I have been often the leader for innovation, technology innovation in many organizations, and I've seen this cycle all the time. You see something that's really interesting, everybody gets excited about it, and then it either peaks and then we never hear from it, or it becomes something. It becomes mainstream. And I'll be the first person to tell you, I'm not some big blockchain evangelist or champion, but I think it's interesting. And I think you might find it interesting too as you begin to learn about it. It is an open question if this becomes a mainstream important technology in the years ahead. All the evidence suggests that it will. All the evidence right now. Lots can change. It's still in that sort of experimental, fascinating period. I'll show you some real examples, and you can make your own mind up what you think about it, ultimately. This is not a talk, by the way, that's going to educate you on the details of blockchain. There's a little bit of assumption you know the basics, but I'll touch on some of those. I do want to touch on cities, though, and their role in the world. And you know, you're all government CISOs and CIOs and other government leaders is my assumption. So you know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world with regard to cities. You know, they are the place we will spend the rest of our lives. Our children will spend their lives there. The rest of humanity, unless something radically changes, is going to live in a city context. So we better make sure our cities are places where we can live and have healthy lives, right? And prosperous lives. I would argue, and I do this quite a lot, that our cities are not ready. And we're actually in a difficult spot. I mean, you look at some of the things that are just going on right now, in terms of our big metropolitan areas, we got issues with quality of air. Look, we're real lucky here in Northern California, I'll agree, right? But not a lot of the world is as fortunate as us when they live in big city areas. The World Health Organization says about 7 million people die because of air quality in cities every single year. 7 million, it's a real number. It's not a few hundred. 7 million people. We're creating enormous amounts of trash. There's a lot of exhaust that happens in our city life. And frankly, all of you experience, as I do, the problems with cities just in our transportation systems, right? This is what my commute pretty much looks like every day, to and from work. Yeah, I'm still in the car, and once the economics make sense, I will get rid of my car. I will do that. The economics right now don't make sense, right? And actually, that's what everyone will do. Like, I can make all the arguments in the world around sustainability, but when it's cheaper and more fun, and you enjoy it, you're going to convert anyway. And that's going to happen. Right? So we have a really big set of complicated city challenges ahead. I mean, these are not small problems. These are the big, intractable problems. And my bet is, because you're a CISO here, or CIO, you do this because you love solving problems. I know I do. I know my career is the way it is because of the fact that I like solving problems. So solving our cities' issues and building great cities is already, and will be some of the biggest challenges of our lifetime. So the question I ask in this slide is, can blockchain technology save our cities? The answer is no. With that, thank you so much. I'm out of here. No, I'll do a little bit more. Yeah. It could help. It could help. And that's really what I'm here to talk about. I'm not sort of over-promising based on my own research analysis, but I think there's enough evidence that potentially this technology can really help. So let me talk about an example. Enough with the fluff. Let's talk about an example. So on any given day, there are trillions of dollars of products moving around the world, right, in various forms, in airplanes and cars and trucks and trains, in big shipping containers. And let's take one example. So a big shipping container boat like this may be picking up bananas and different types of fruits. Let's just use bananas because it's an easy one for us to think about. And they're picking up the bananas in a South American country, and it's at the port. And as the bananas are put on the big boat, there's lots of paperwork that gets filled out, right? And because there's someone receiving the goods. And then at the other side, when the big containers arrive in, let's say, Los Angeles, the stuff is taken off and more paperwork is signed. It's like anywhere between 16 and 32 different manual interactions. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you won't believe. Not everybody is honest. You know that more than anyone else, by the way. I figured I should know the audience, right? So they mess with the numbers, right? They actually, because it's paper, they say they're delivering more bananas, and the other side they're saying we're receiving less bananas. And a ton of nasty stuff goes on. And this has been going on for decades. And in fact, it's just, for many of these organizations, it's just the cost of doing business. They just accept it, right? There hasn't been a very good way of solving this problem. From origin of taking the banana off the banana tree to the supermarket or to your house, there hasn't been a really easy way to track it. Now, if you could do that, if you could track the banana all the way, you'd reduce fraud, you'd keep costs down, you'd eliminate crime. And so that's a really interesting problem to solve. A big shipping company like Maersk, for example, you may know that name. They want to solve this problem, and they haven't been able to, but they have stumbled upon blockchain. They're like, maybe blockchain helps us solve this origin to destination problem. And so Maersk is investing heavily in technology that's blockchain-based to solve a problem we've never been able to solve before. Because we can do that. I'll come back to some of those concepts. Here's another example. You know about blood diamonds, I imagine, right? So hopefully none of you have one, or you haven't given one as a gift to somebody. But diamonds come from places where ethical standards aren't the same as perhaps we would like them to be. It doesn't happen as much anymore for sure, but it still happens. And so you don't really know. You get sort of a certificate that says this diamond was ethically mined and delivered, and you hope. You hope that certificate is legitimate, right? So again, difficult problem to solve. How do you know as an individual that the diamond you bought, or the diamond ring you bought, or the diamond earrings come from mines that are ethically mined? Well, you have trust and faith, right? Very hard to do that in a 21st century global economy, to rely entirely on human trust, particularly because, like I said earlier, not everybody is as trustworthy as you, right? And me, right? So this company called Everledger, they make a blockchain technology that for the first time helps us track diamonds from the source to the destination. Really neat. We haven't been able to do that before. Finally, one more example, and this is actually one of my favorites, is when there's a crisis somewhere in the world, as there typically is in any given month, good people contribute money, and that money is used to, for example, provide supplies, to feed people. You know what happens though? When that money or those shipments of products go to the destination, and this is maybe a surprise again, it doesn't always go to the people who need it. Along the way, bad people are kind of milking it. They're taking pieces from it, right? Wouldn't it be great if you knew that if you went online and paid $100 towards a charity, and you knew that the majority of that money would get to the individual it was supposed to go to? Wouldn't that be great? United Nations would like that because they distribute billions of dollars of aid every year. And they want to know, how can we do this? How can we make sure that every penny and all the products go to the people that deserve it? So they're using technology, blockchain technology, using blockchain to track from the source, you providing money or a product, all the way into the developed area. And then the person who that money is intended for, that person, that family, or that community, can validate that they get the money, and the entire pathway is auditable, traceable, and for the first time without the possibility, potentially, of fraudulent activity. This is a concept known as provenance. You know what I find fascinating, because I look at a lot of tech, is how every technology has its own set of words, right? Our industry has words, right? Especially technology. Or it uses a word that is, provenance has always been around. I never heard it until blockchain. I don't know, maybe I'm unusual. But provenance is an English word that means basically the origin, the source of something. And what blockchain technology can do is trace the life cycle of both digital products and physical products from source to destination. That solves a lot of problems. So provenance is a core capability. If you can think of an example, I imagine you can in your head, of something that goes from source to destination, and you want 100% or close to reliability that gets to the destination, if you can think of one and blockchain can solve it, maybe check that off as a positive. Perhaps that's a good thing. Now I realize you're all cybersecurity professionals, and so I want to in some way make this cyber related. The internet has brought enormous capabilities to the world. We all know that, right? Stories have been told. And yet, by the way, the best of the internet and the worst is also ahead of us, not behind us. I always argue, and you can hear me talk about this and write about this, that we're just in the opening stages of the internet. We're just at the beginning. This isn't like isn't the middle play or the end game, you know? And so the best stuff is still ahead of us. But it relies heavily on trust. All the cool things we do with the internet today, and a lot of it is commerce, it relies ultimately on trust. Think about eBay, right? Right, we kind of got workarounds. You know, the person has a score, high score, that they're going to deliver something. Or sometimes you get, even from a reputable company like Amazon, you get something delivered, it's the wrong thing. Or somebody uses your account, they pretend to be you, and then they steal your stuff, they use your credit card, right? The internet has a lot of challenges. Even though it's brought us all this incredible capability, it has enormous challenges because fundamentally it still relies on this core human principle of trust, right? Until we can solve that trust problem, the internet will never be the thing it can be, right? It'll never fulfill its complete mission. And we will continue to live with fraud and hacking and all the horrible things that go alongside all the benefits, right? So what would happen if you could just, hey, let's not worry about trust because we're going to create an environment that actually is trustless. Not that we don't trust it, but it doesn't require trust. Trustless means it doesn't require trust. It's not that you can't trust the person, right? So big clarification there. Wouldn't that be great that we could now go from databases that require authentication and, you know, are, for the most part, reliant on a login name, a password, and if you're really cool, do a two-factor authentication, right? To a point where you don't even care about that because those are all elements of human trust. Like if the person logging in uses my name and password, the assumption is the trust is it's me, but it doesn't have to be me. It can be a bad person or a computer. What blockchain does for the very first time is technology, as a database technology, it makes us think about trustlessness. That's a word I don't use quite often, but a world in which you don't have to rely on trust. You're relying on a different authentication mechanism. What the most popular today is a consensus mechanism, right? That becomes really interesting. What is my next slide? Well, when we think about government, there's an awful lot of things we do and store that requires trust. Look at all these things. And by the way, this is all I could think of. That just means I'm limited. It's not all the things there are, right? Right? Some people see that and they're like, that's cool. I want to see that again. So I'm going to play it again. There you go. These are the things, just the things that I can think of, that are environments in which both provenance and trustlessness would be really valuable. Because all of these things today are either hard to do or are subject to significant fraud, right? So suddenly I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I could do better identity management in government. That'd be kind of useful. Be great to be able to protect things like my birth certificate, marriage certificate. You know, be great to have the full provenance, the entire history of the information on a piece of property in a digital format that I know is secure, that I feel good about. I didn't realize how much of real estate records are fraudulent. It's one of those things we don't talk about. We hope that when we buy a house or sell a house, it's all good. But there are people out there apparently are not doing so well because this stuff is hacked and there's fraudulent activities all the time. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Okay, let's get some practical examples of blockchain in practice, right? Because on one level you might think, well, I've been reading about this thing, but it's all speculation. It's all like, it's only white papers, right? Or it's people saying, people are saying, it sounds kind of interesting, but nobody's doing anything with it. Well, I want to tell you about the stuff people are doing with it, right? And then I'll wrap up, and I don't know if maybe there will be a time for maybe one or two questions. So this is the city. Anybody know? You guys are laughing over there. Do you know where this is? No? This is the city of Zug. Zug, Z-U-G. Anybody know where that is? You can't answer it, Raj. No. It's Switzerland. It's a city in Switzerland. It's a kind of a small city. It's called Zug. And Zug is the first city in the world to use blockchain for voting online. Right? I think about that and I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's really difficult to do voting online. I mean, there's a few pockets around the place, around the world, where it's done. But cybersecurity professionals, I think you could probably make the case that with today's technology, borderline risk, right? Would you feel confident with existing technology to be able to vote from your smartphone? Right? Wouldn't it be great in the midterms just to vote on your smartphone and know that your vote was counted and that the system knew it was you, nobody else could be you, right? So in Zug they're doing it, and the way that they're doing it is with blockchain technology because it's trustless and it's got high integrity. Now I'm not going to be the person ever to get on the stage and say it's 100% secure. I'm not going to be that guy, right? But it's pretty secure, pretty secure. People who know tell me that quantum computing could be a challenge. I think I agree. But let's worry about that. That's a little ways in the future. But in today's world, it's pretty hard based on the authentication mechanism, the consensus mechanism, to hack a blockchain database. So there's a lot of integrity to it. This is going on right now. One of my favorite places in the world is Dubai. I get to visit quite often for a variety of reasons. Anybody been to Dubai here? Yeah, it must be a small handful. Yeah, I believe about 6 people, 7 people. Worth visiting. Definitely a fascinating place. It's a remarkable feat of human ambition to build this incredible metropolis on a piece of sand by the water in the middle of nowhere. And they have a leader who's pretty ambitious, very innovation focused, very tech focused. He likes going after the newest thing. He loves the next shiny object. He realizes going after these things is good for the brand of Dubai because they want to be an innovative place, a place that creates a place to go and discuss the future and actually see the future. So it's really important for their brand. And so when their leader got word of blockchain technology beyond the cryptocurrency piece of it, and learned that, hey, this is a place, this is a technology that could replace our existing legacy database technology with a new technology that makes our systems more secure, manages authentication and identity. He said, you know what, let's move the whole city onto blockchain technology. And so they have a pretty ambitious goal. Now I don't know if it's achievable, at least in the time horizon, and I think it's a pretty big bet. But the city of Dubai is moving all their government processes, everything, to blockchain within just a few years. Now there's 2 things I just want to touch on briefly, hopefully I have time for it, are 2 of the areas that I think are going to be some of the biggest transformations in our cities and in our society over the next 30 years. Pretty much the first half of the 21st century. The first are self-driving vehicles. And the second, does anybody know what the second might be? Anybody guess? No. Pardon? They'll be important, but that wouldn't be the one I would choose as the second most important. I would say the energy revolution. Energy revolution. Essentially our conversion from carbon to non-carbon based energy. This is going to be a significant shift in our societies. And so let's talk about cars for a second and the relationship that cars might have to blockchain technology. Well, you might have heard this before. For those who haven't, I'm just going to say, because I think it's a neat way of thinking about the future of vehicles, is this idea of a thing called ACEs. I heard it from a professor at Stanford, and I've been using it all the time. I forget his name, so I can't give him credit. But at least I said it was from someone else, not my own. Right? So the ACEs, right? A, autonomous, right? Cars are going to drive themselves. That's going to happen. That's no longer a debate. C is connected. Most cars coming off the production line, I think this year, latest next year, are going to be connected cars. When you are in a connected car and then you go into a non-connected car, it's like, how the heck do I drive this non-connected? How did I ever drive this unconnected cars? Connected cars are pretty amazing. Many of you already have them. They're giving you tons of information about the weather, about road conditions, and all sorts of information has been absorbed by your car to make the ride more optimized. ACE is electric. We are now living within distance of the end of the combustion engine. I think that's really incredible, right? We will see it in our lifetimes, the end of the combustion engine. And it's amazing to imagine the places where this is actually going to be law. It's kind of unsuspecting areas. You know, so you have, for example, India, 2045 is the end of combustion engine. You can't sell a gas-powered car. You won't be able to in the country of India in 2024. Excuse me, 2045. I think I said that, 2045. Other countries are more ambitious, but that's not far away, by the way. You think of 2045, that's like a long time. It's not that long. 2030 is only 11 years. Right? So the rest of add to 14, 24 years, something like that. You get Sweden and some of the Scandinavian countries, 2035. So we're within distance. It's a good news story. Cars will drive long distance. We already see the first innovation about cars that actually power themselves while they're driving from the sun. So we may not need EV charging stations eventually. Whoops, I went too fast. And then the S. Anybody know what the S is? What did you say? So that would be a good one, actually. And no, it is shared. So if you think that we're all going to own self-driving cars, I think we have to be open-minded to the fact that we may not own cars in the future, that the cars will only be on demand. This notion of going to a car dealership and saying, I'd like that car, that may be over. I have a suspicion the car I bought last year might be my last car. I don't know, it might be. A person who is, if you have a baby or a young child in your life today, 0, 1, 2 years old, 0 years old, I haven't heard, 1 or 2 years old, that person will likely never drive a car. They will never own a driver's license. I mean, the likelihood of them ever driving a car is slim to nil. So pretty big deal. When we have self-driving vehicles, we can completely redesign our cities. We're no longer constrained by the grid system. We don't have to even have things like traffic signals and stop signs and directions. We don't even have to have 2 lanes. Right? You can completely rethink urban planning when you have self-driving vehicles. Well, wait a minute, what happened with blockchain? It's like, I went off, I'm not talking about blockchain anymore. So blockchain will enable these self-driving cars to do very interesting things. For example, talk to each other, negotiate, trade. Use blockchain trading to make decisions around, for example, who gets to a destination faster than another car. Perhaps there's a condition, a rule that you've programmed into the car or the car delivery service that said, it won't be the fastest trip, but it'll cost you less. If you want a faster trip, it'll cost you more. Because blockchain is facilitating negotiation between cars for the sort of pole position, right? In the sort of medium term, your car might be a payment system using blockchain, or a way in which the car communicates with all sorts of internet-connected devices in the urban infrastructure, sending information reliably and with full integrity between multiple devices. So there's a lot of roles. One of the last things I wanted to share, because I'll tie this with something I said earlier, is BMW. So when they build a car, they, as most car companies do, they have to source materials and products from all over the world. And one of the materials that BMW uses is cobalt. The cobalt has a similar problem to blood diamonds. And sometimes it's mined in places that ethics isn't good. So they want to use blockchain to be able to trace the origin of cobalt right to the BMW facility and know that the products they're using are sustainable and ethically mined. So the second and last item in terms of the big changes to our cities is the potential for a significant energy revolution that's already underway. This is already underway, but it's still starting. There are lots of ways we can go away from carbon-based energy, and the reality is we're going to. The question is, who will be the winners? Will it be wind, nuclear, geothermal, wave motion, solar? Well, the data suggests it's solar, and it's quite compelling. Here's just one of the storylines around solar, right? Over the last 30 years, actually 40 years, 41 years, you can see how much it's declined. There aren't a lot of things that have declined 250 times downward and still had the same amount of value. It's kind of a remarkable result of innovation. Today, so that 30 cents represents the cost of a unit, 1 watt per a solar panel. And today, that 30 cent is the lowest cost unit of energy ever produced on the ever, right? So by a long shot. The curious thing, and I would ask this question if I had more time, is it's happening in the Middle East. It's happening actually in Dubai. They're getting the lowest cost solar. These countries were born and exploded on oil, and they're getting the best benefits from solar, which is so completely unintuitive. So our homes, our companies are going to be likely moving rapidly to solar. From what you observe right now, and also my own observations of stock prices, because I invest in this stuff and I haven't seen the money go up quite yet. One would think there's not a lot of momentum, but it's going to happen. Look, don't make an investment based on what I say, by the way. It's a big disclaimer right there. It's on video, so I'm feeling good about that. But it seems to me that we're going to begin, the momentum towards solar is going to pick up steam. That seems like an unfortunate pun. Or maybe a positive one, right? Okay. Russ is with me. Cool. This is for you. This is your big last keynote, right? And so our communities are going to go all solar, right? And here's just one interesting thing. In big cities, every day, it could be that one half of the city is in bad weather and one half of the city is in good weather. Just go with me with this idea. I don't know if it makes sense, right? And so when the sun is really shining good on one side of the city, they're able to accumulate more solar power than the side of the city that's getting a little bit of light, or sufficient light that they're generating. But one side's getting more. And therefore, they can store it, potentially, and or during the times when there's low energy provided in those areas of the city where there's not good conditions for solar, the solar energy can be moved and provided to those homes. Now, today we're kind of doing that. We're starting to do that stuff, right? But you need kind of a platform to be able to trade that. And in fact, how can you do it? So first of all, it's high integrity. It's largely independent. In fact, you could actually generate some money from it. Well, there are a number of platforms that are on the blockchain right now that trade energy, that are experimenting with this very thing. There's a company called Power Ledger, and this is what they do, right? And so technically, if you are very lucky to live in the sunnier part of town, if that even exists, you might actually earn surplus. Yeah, and it could be in crypto, right? In which case, you could cash it out for fiat currency like dollars, right? Or you could trade with the local stores, and suddenly you have an alternate economy where normal money, fiat currency, doesn't have a role, right? You have effectively generated a brand new currency called solar coins. And the way in which you maintain that is on a blockchain database. A couple of last points here, because I'm getting the sign. At least I think that's what they're gesturing. Right? We're going to see lots of different types of blockchains, right? It's a database technology that lots of people will have a flavor of, and there will be blockchains for certain things. It won't be just a universal. It's not just all about the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain. There right now is a lot already, but as the marketplace consolidates, there'll be a few, right? And one that I find kind of interesting is one that's specifically built for IoT technology. It's called IOTA. And it uses a slightly different flavor of blockchain. So now we're seeing specificity. Now we're starting to see blockchain databases built for specific technology uses that we can leverage. If you want to know more, I've thrown up here a couple of things you could research. If you're not convinced by my little talk this afternoon that blockchain has the potential, you could look up some of these. There is legislation on the way to our governor in California here. If he signs it by September 30th, so he's got about 3 weeks, looks like he's going to, We will codify blockchain into California law. Now, there's different kind of flavors to it. One is the ability to use blockchain for raising money, for actually bond trading. And the other is for initiating a advisory group to look at how blockchain could help the state of California. And here you can see some other ones, including the state of Illinois, Berkeley's innovative bonds program, and Vermont's blockchain law. Right? Vermont sees potentially blockchain as an economic stimulus, right? And you can research these to know a little bit more. So what do I recommend after all that? Maybe you're sitting here still not convinced. That's okay, right? But if you are kind of curious, assuming you're not already developing and piloting and doing this stuff, there's a little bit of assumption on my part. If you're doing that, cool. But if you're in the middle and you're like, I don't know, I'm still not convinced by what Jonathan said or by what I'm reading, learn a bit more about it. I don't think it'll be wasted time. And particularly as cybersecurity professionals, I think that you might be fascinated by the way it starts to enable us to think differently about the idea of trust. If there's nothing else that you remember from what I said today, it's blockchain helps us rethink the notion of trust, right? This is really key. Now, if you're really ambitious, if you really are ready to go, I suggest start experimenting. A lot of the stuff is open source, right? So really the expense is your time, your team's time, right? Maybe you want to work with a partner, so there's a bit of money there, but experiment with stuff. So this will be my advice to you. Take it or leave it. And with that, thank you very much. Do I have time for a question or no? One question. Oh, two questions.
I got one.
Oh, yes.
We were talking earlier about the role of the CISO expanding to justify a seat at the strategy table in whatever the operation is. One of the big components of that is instead of the just say no, that's been kind of a traditional position of the CISO in the past, now they bring the enablement of the technology. In other words, we're going to create a secure environment so that you can innovate to the program side. It would seem like blockchain, that technology, that security, is going to be necessary ultimately for the CISO to make that commitment.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Well, I love the underlying storyline there, which is, you know, that added value, that those alternative perspectives, those are things that the C-suite needs to hear. By the way, I think the CISO should definitely be on the C-suite. So to me, there's no debate there, right? Everyone agrees. So I wouldn't just, maybe the way to think about this question is it's not just blockchain, right? There's tons of other kind of cool things that are happening in the cybersecurity space. One of the data points that struck me as interesting is PricewaterhouseCoopers does an annual cybersecurity survey. The results are free online. It's very well done. My guess is quite a few people in this room look at it. They asked the question, typically it's research they do at boards, public company boards. And they asked the question, how many are making cybersecurity a priority? And for a long time, the numbers were low, right? But in the last 3 to 5 years, it's gone from like 60 to now 70. Probably about 80% of boards agree that cybersecurity is a priority, right? But the next question is the more concerning one: is what are you doing about it? Right? What are you doing about it? And not as much as they should. They think it's an IT function. Oh, the IT people will look after it, right? When cybersecurity is a function of the board. It's an enterprise problem, right? And so I think that your question lends it towards the CISO having much more of a role of actioning and being an enterprise leader for combating cybersecurity. One more? No? There's another talk after me about blockchain, I think, where the guy or gal, I don't know who it is going to contradict everything I said. So everybody's going to run to that one. Because I was looking at the agenda, it's like blockchain's nonsense or something like that. So see who wins the argument. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.